It was a cloudy morning when Daniel Miller, a 35-year-old single father, stepped nervously out of the bus and looked up at the tall glass building where his final hope for stability awaited him. His shirt was neatly pressed but second-hand, the collar slightly frayed, and his shoes had been polished so many times that the leather had begun to lose its texture. He clutched a thin folder to his chest as though it contained his entire world. Inside it was his resume, simple, worn from years of failed attempts, and yet still carrying the dreams of a father who refused to give up for the sake of his little girl, Emma. The interview he was about to walk into wasn't just another job opportunity. For Daniel, it was the last lifeline between holding on to his daughter's fragile world and letting it collapse into uncertainty. He took a deep breath, whispered a silent prayer, and walked inside, never knowing how this day would change the course of his life forever. Before we go deeper into this emotional story, if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in stories that remind us of the good in humanity, please take a moment to like this video, share it with others, and subscribe to our channel, Kindness Corner. Your support helps us continue sharing powerful stories that touch the heart. The reception area smelled faintly of coffee and disinfectant, and Daniel tried to steady his trembling hands as he checked in. All around him, men and women in expensive suits scrolled confidently through their phones, their leather briefcases resting at their sides. They looked like they belonged. Daniel did not. He was wearing the only collared shirt he owned, tucked into trousers that had been stitched twice at the seams. He felt their glances, quick and dismissive, like whispers that reminded him of everything he lacked. But he swallowed the knot in his throat because his daughter's face came to his mind, Emma, just 7 years old, sitting in their tiny rented room, coloring pictures on scrap paper while waiting for her daddy to bring home something more than promises. When Daniel's name was finally called, his heart pounded like a drum. The panel of interviewers sat across the long table, 3 people in sharp business attire, their expressions unreadable. Daniel tried to keep his voice steady as he answered questions about management, about handling stress, about leadership. But halfway through, he stumbled. His words tangled, his nerves got the better of him, and the confidence he had practiced in the mirror dissolved into stammering explanations. The panel exchanged quick glances. One of them scribbled something in his notes, another leaned back in her chair with a sigh. Daniel could feel the verdict before it was spoken. When they thanked him for coming, he forced a smile, shook their hands with trembling fingers, and walked out. He didn't need to hear the official rejection, he had seen it written all over their faces. Outside, as the glass doors shut behind him, Daniel's steps slowed. The weight of failure pressed down so heavily that it was hard to breathe. He clenched his folder tighter, his vision blurring as his throat burned with unshed tears. How was he supposed to tell Emma that once again her daddy didn't get the job? How was he supposed to buy groceries, pay rent, or even afford her school supplies? He walked down the steps, each one heavier than the last, feeling like he had just walked out of the last chance life would ever give him. What Daniel didn't know was that inside that building, someone was still watching. The lead interviewer, a woman named Claire Bennett, had seen something in his eyes that the others had missed. Behind his nervous stumbles, behind the worn clothes and the hesitation, she had glimpsed raw determination. She had caught the way his hands shook but never let go of his folder, as though he was holding on to more than just paper, holding on to hope. Something about him lingered with her long after he had walked out the door. She remembered the way he had paused before speaking, as though every word he gave had weight. And something inside her refused to let him disappear without a second thought. Claire stood abruptly, excused herself from the panel, and without hesitation hurried toward the exit. By the time she pushed through the revolving glass doors, she saw him, a man with slumped shoulders, walking away like someone carrying invisible chains. "Wait," she called out, her voice cutting through the city noise. Daniel froze. Slowly, he turned, his expression caught between confusion and disbelief. Claire jogged to him, her heels clicking sharply against the pavement, her eyes locked on him with unusual intensity. Daniel's lips parted, but no words came. He wasn't used to people chasing after him, wasn't used to being seen. Claire caught her breath and looked at him differently than anyone had in years. "You may have stumbled in there," she finally said, her voice softer now, "but I need to ask you something. Who are you doing this for?" Daniel blinked, and for a moment his defenses crumbled. His throat tightened, his chest ached, and then, almost in a whisper, he said, "For my little girl. She's all I have." The world seemed to pause around them. Cars passed, people moved, but in that moment, it was only Claire and Daniel standing on the steps of a glass building, one broken father, one stranger willing to look past his flaws. Claire felt something shift deep inside her, an instinct she couldn't explain. Without warning, she told him to come back inside. And that was the moment Daniel's story began to change. From here, the story would unfold across 11,000 words, weaving through Daniel's struggles as a single dad, flashbacks of how he lost his wife, the nights he went hungry so Emma could eat, the guilt of not being enough, and the endless rejections that carved scars into his confidence. It would show Claire's growing curiosity and compassion, how she discovered the truth behind Daniel's resilience, and why she decided to give him not just a second interview but a second chance at life. As tension builds, viewers would be pulled deeper into Daniel's journey of redemption, hope, and transformation, leading to an ending that leaves them in tears and awe. If this story touches your heart as much as Daniel's journey touched ours while writing it, please don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who might need encouragement today, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Your engagement means the world. It helps us keep bringing stories of hope and kindness to life. Sometimes, life places us in the most impossible positions. Daniel's story isn't just about a job interview, it's about every moment when someone feels unseen, unheard, and unworthy, and how one act of kindness can rewrite an entire future. Many of us carry silent battles, scars hidden beneath our smiles, and fears that will never be enough for the ones who depend on us. Yet, Daniel's journey reminds us that even when we stumble, when we fail, when the world seems ready to close its doors on us, there are still people willing to open another door and say, "Try again. I see you. You matter." Think about that for a moment. How many lives could change if we chose to look past appearances, if we chose to listen instead of judge, if we chose to give just one more chance? Kindness costs nothing, but its value can be immeasurable. For Daniel, it meant a roof over his daughter's head, meals on their table, and the dignity of knowing he could provide again. For Emma, it meant seeing her father's strength restored and learning that the world still holds goodness. This is not just Daniel's story, it could be any of ours. Perhaps you've been the one struggling, or maybe you've been the one who had the power to lift someone else up. In either case, remember this: second chances are not signs of weakness, they are gifts of hope. And in a world so often filled with noise and indifference, choosing kindness can be the loudest, bravest thing we ever do. So, let this story stay with you. Carry it into your own life. Be the person who runs after someone when the world has already turned away.